नमस्कार एडवंजायच्या कार्यावळीत तुमकां सगळ्यांक येवकार. आज आमचे असे खास गेस्ट आसात जांची 2 पुस्तकां जगभर गाजल्यात आणि तांचें तिसरें पुस्तक जें आसा तें मार्चाक येवपाचें आसा. आमचे बरोबर आसात अमीश त्रिपाठी, तांचे द इमॉर्टल्स ऑफ मलुआ आणि द सिक्रेट ऑफ द नागास ही 2 पुस्तकां जगभर गाजल्यात. Amish, and thanks a lot to speaking to our channel and obviously go and read us of you.
Pleasure coming here.
To March, ultimately, finally you have announced the date for the Oath of the Vayu.
Sorry about the delay.
Yeah. What is the reason behind the delay and how is it shaping up?
Yes, the book was supposed to launch in December 2012. What's happened is that it's grown very, very long. I think I really wanted to say a very long goodbye to the Shiva trilogy. The third book is nearly twice as long as my earlier 2 books. And my earlier 2 books weren't short either.
Okay.
So that's why it took a long time to write. And of course, editing's taking a bit of time as well.
Yeah.
So that's the reason for the delay. My sincere apologies for the delay, and I hope you guys will like it when it comes out.
How big? Because for your first book had 26 chapters,
Correct.
second book also has similar number of chapters.
The third one has 53 or 54 chapters.
So almost double.
Almost double. Actually, slightly more than double. So it will be a very long book.
Yeah, and are you worried about the size of the book? Because the first 2 books had a very comfortable size.
Correct.
Maybe it be a youngster or a elderly person also who likes to read.
Right.
It was going comfortably with every section. A bigger book.
I have my fingers crossed. I'm hoping for the best.
Yeah.
See, what we're going to do is the publisher is working on this, playing around with the layout, with the line spacing, with the margins a little bit to see if we can reduce the number of pages. We don't want to reduce the font size too much because then it will become difficult to read. So if we can do that and still keep it in a reasonable page number, then of course it will be good. But yes, it will be a long book. But hopefully people will still read through it quickly. There was an idea to break it up into 2 books, but I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to launch it as 1 book. I'd announced a trilogy.
Trilogy means trilogy.
Correct. A trilogy can't be launched in 4 parts, right?
Finally, it is over.
Right.
Now I think it is mostly marketing, and publicity, all those kind of things. The part of the author, his actual involvement in the book and creation of the content is over. How does it feel? Because it was your baby, 3 books, 3 books that gave you name, fame, everything. How did you feel on the day when you wrote the last line of the book?
Look, name and fame and all are all illusions. That's all on the side. What the book has really given to me is it has brought me back to spirituality. It has brought me back to Lord Shiva, and that I feel is a blessing that is unparalleled. And I sincerely hope that for all of us, that all of us find our path to God, whichever form we find Him in, whether we find Him as Lord Shiva or Lord Vishnu or Shakti Ma or Allah or Jesus Christ, whichever form we find Him in, we should find our path to God, because the beauty and the happiness that you find is unparalleled.
How did you feel?
That's what the Shiva trilogy has given to me.
How did you feel when you wrote that last line of the 3rd book?
It's like, for me, it's like the end of a long, life-changing journey. But Lord Shiva is never going to leave me, man. Just because I've finished the book doesn't mean he's left me. He's going to be with me all my life, and hopefully for all my lives, all my multiple lives. But as far as the Shiva trilogy itself is concerned, my journey is still not over. I am a nauseatingly involved author. So even in the marketing activities of the book, I'm very, very closely involved. I don't just hand it over to the publisher. So I'm one of those control freak type guys.
But author getting involved into marketing, usually we say ki artists or authors, they know very little about marketing. Now because of your background, you have a neck in it. How much it helps?
No, of course my background helps, there's no doubt about it. The fact that I studied at an IIM, the fact that I worked in professional companies like IDBI, like Standard Chartered Bank, like Development Bank of Singapore, it's obviously helped me. Having said that, I strongly feel that every author must be involved in the marketing of his book. Your book is like your baby. You don't hand your baby over to some governess, right, and then say, okay, I'll see my baby after 20 years. It doesn't work that way. It's your baby, right? So the book is your baby. You can't just hand it over to the publisher. And the publisher will never, no matter how positive minded the publisher is, the publisher will never be as emotional or committed to the book as an author will be. Because for the author, it's his own child. So an author, I feel, should never hand over the book. He has to be deeply and closely and nauseatingly involved in every aspect. In every aspect of the book.
Most important thing is Shiva. Now your Shiva is completely uncharacteristic to the general perception of Shiva. How did it happened, you call it an inspiration, you call it a blessing. But how did you picturize or imagine it is practically a parallel world and parallel character of Shiva
See,
to
okay.
the general perception?
Okay, first of all, on the general perception, if I
Yeah.
may differ a bit, Lord Shiva has always been a very kind of cool, and for the want of a better term, a very
Yeah.
cool God.
Yeah.
He's always been a very, and no disrespect to any other
Correct.
God, he's always been a very democratic, cool,
Yeah.
almost rebellious God.
Yeah.
So in that sense, my, how he's been portrayed in my books is actually nothing different.
Nothing
He's
different.
always been
Yeah.
a very cool God.
Yeah.
You know, but I always say that my books are only a small kind of contribution
Yeah.
to his innate coolness.
Mm.
Okay. As far as the way the story is developed, I have to honestly say that I genuinely believe it's a blessing. I know it might sound strange, but I genuinely believe it's a blessing. I don't believe I've created the characters. I believe Lord Shiva has created it, and I'm only a channel. And I do what he tells me to do. So I don't know how the story comes. I just open the laptop, I start writing, and it just flows. And I write what comes to me. I don't question it. I just write what comes to me.
Fair enough, but tell me one thing, when you are creating such a character, there is a general perception already. Weren't you afraid that there will be some controversies? Because in our country, you know, whenever you say something to the gods and your perceptions, people always take it negative. First, were you scared that such kind of a thing will happen to your book? Secondly, why did it not happen?
Okay, and I'm not being facetious. I mean this genuinely. That if you want to write a book like this, there's no better country than India to do it. I mean it genuinely, because I'm not doing anything new. Retelling of our myths have been done thousands and thousands of times all through our history. We just forgot our innate liberalism as a country in the last 100-200 years. Otherwise, at our core, we are a deeply liberal country.
Correct.
And by liberalism, I don't mean being left-wing. By liberalism, I mean the ability to accept a different point of view. That is what liberalism means, and I think Indians were deeply liberal.
Correct.
So I don't think I'm being un-Indian by writing this. In fact, I believe I'm being more Indian, you know, by writing a story such as this. Secondly, perhaps I think one of the reasons perhaps why controversies haven't happened with regard to my books, whereas it has happened on other aspects. I think somewhere if you write something or if you create something with genuine respect in your heart, I think a reader can sense that as well.
Genuinity.
Yeah, and so I genuinely idolize and love and respect and worship Lord Shiva, and at least I think it comes across in my books, and which is why I'm not surprised that there has
Usually
been
people
no.
say it is good when the controversies happen.
I don't agree with that at all. In fact, there were people who suggested, to me that controversy could be a good route to sell the books.
A marketing
But-
gimmick.
Yeah, but I'm very clear that look, if I'm going to use controversies to sell my book, then in my mind I'm insulting Lord Shiva. So if there has to be controversies, then frankly I don't want the books to sell. So I'm very, very clear on that. And if you write it with respect, there's no reason for any controversy at all. And I genuinely feel anyone who reads my book, I think they can realize that look, I'm very, very devoted to Lord Shiva. This is my interpretation of how he came to me.
How difficult it is to create that Prati Srushti, we can say, or that Prati mythology, we can say. How difficult it is to create that by taking clans like Suryavanshis, Chandravanshis, and we know our gods emerge from those
Descendants of the
clans.
sun or the moon,
So
right? Yeah.
how difficult it is to create that Prati Srushti way?
It's a fantastic question, and the way I see it is, this is either the most difficult job in the world, or it's the easiest job in the world. It can become the most difficult job in the world if you labor under the illusion that I am in control of it, that I am going to decide how the story will flow, I will decide how the philosophies will emerge, etc., etc. If you try and do that, it's going to be the most difficult job in the world. The way it can become the easiest job in the world is if you realize that my job is only to gather all the knowledge and information. How that knowledge emerges into a story is Lord Shiva's job. If you actually see it from that perspective, then it's actually the easiest job in the world, because frankly then I have to do nothing. I just have to open the laptop and wait for him to start, right? And then he sends it and I write what comes to me.
Your language is really flowing. It grips the reader.
Thank you.
You never studied literature?
I was, look, I'm 38 years old.
Yeah.
So in the generation that I grew up in, regrettably, the atmosphere was such that look, you don't do humanities or literature.
Yeah.
You know, if you because you do that only if you have bad grades. Frankly, sadly, that it was a bias,
was,
but
yeah,
that
yeah,
was
that
a
was
bias.
it.
That you do English
Yeah.
literature because you weren't smart enough to get into science or engineering
Yeah.
or medicine. It's a regrettable, stupid bias.
Yeah.
But I guess it was also based on the fact that look, India at that time there weren't really that many jobs. So you know, so to get good jobs, you had to get into those fields.
Now, how
either
did you
MBA or
acquire that
science or
knack of
engineering.
writing? Because you haven't studied literature.
Right.
Are you a voracious reader?
I'm a voracious reader. I love reading.
Yeah.
And I've been a voracious reader since as long as I can remember. But I read more non-fiction books. So books which might be called boring by most other people. You know, so philosophy books, history books, you know, those kind of books. But yes, I've been a voracious reader. Maybe that helped somewhere. I've been born into a family of very talented writers. My father writes Urdu poetry. My elder brother writes Urdu and English poetry. My wife writes very well. So I guess I'm surrounded by people far more talented than I am. So maybe it's a blessing of the atmosphere I was born into, my reading habits, and maybe, and frankly, it's Lord Shiva's blessings that it emerged that way.
When Maluha got published, when did you get that confidence that this is a bestseller? This is national bestseller? Because we were speaking yesterday, and even I told you when I picked the book, it is a fluke.
Correct.
It's the first book.
Right.
You don't know the author.
Right.
And
You don't know the publisher either
you don't
because
know
it
the
was
publisher
actually
either.
practically self-published.
Yeah. So it's a fluke.
Right.
So when did that fluke turn into that reality of being a bestseller, national bestseller?
It was actually surprising the pace at which it happened because it took me some 5 years to write the book. 2 years the book kept getting rejected by everyone. But when it
How
was
many
finally
publishers rejected it?
I stopped counting at 20. But basically we sent it to every single publisher in India and every single publisher rejected it because they said, boss, religious kitab hai, you know, the youth aren't interested in religious topic, ye bikne wala nahi hai, you know, so fair enough, that was the reason that they gave me. But when the book was launched, it actually hit the bestseller list within a week of its launch. So I was surprised also by the pace at which it kind of picked up. So I always say, look, it's a dream, man, don't wake me up.
Now almost 5 lakh copies of Maluha.
Yes, I mean both Melua and Nagas put together at close to 1 million. I think
Close to a million.
9.5 lakhs.
9.5.
9.5 lakhs, yeah.
And translations into so many Indian languages.
Yes, Hindi, Gujarati, Marathi, Telugu, and many other languages will be coming soon. Bengali, Tamil, Assamese.
The perception of Shiva, again coming back to it, the creation, it's your creation.
Right.
An English reading crowd is little more liberal. They might accept that character as a semi-fiction character or whatever you mean. When it gets translated into Indian languages, that how confident you were that that reader will accept it, a Marathi reader will accept
I was
it, or
completely-
a Telugu reader will
I was
accept it.
completely confident, and so see even the Hindi books have I think sold or at maybe 65-70,000 copies. The Telugu is at some 10-15,000 copies. Marathi is at 10,000 copies. So they're not really secrets anymore. And honestly, I haven't faced one protest till now. And I mean it genuinely from the bottom of my heart. If you want to write a book like this, there's no better country than India. And if you write it with respect in your heart, I think the reader can also see that this is an author who's very dedicated to Lord Shiva, and it's a different interpretation. That's all. There's no reason for any controversy.
How big was the pressure and how big is the pressure now? When you published Nagas and now that you are publishing Vayuputra.
Okay, when I'm writing, I don't feel any pressure.
Yeah.
Because when I'm writing, it's
Yeah, you're off
I know
Twitter. You're off Twitter
I cut
also.
off from everything. I cut off from everything. And for me, it's almost like a spiritual experience. I feel like, I mean, it's the best part for me about the book because it almost feels like I'm kind of, in a weird way, connected to him. You know? And then he's sending it, and I'm kind of writing it. So that is probably at that time I don't feel any pressure. When I start marketing the books, yes, then I start feeling the pressure कि अबे यार अभी इतने छप रहे हैं, ये बिकेंगे कि नहीं? What marketing strategy should we make that it sells out quickly? Because look, ultimately the publishers, you know, putting his money, you know, based on my
at the business part of
and for him it's a business, yeah. It's fair enough. I should understand that, you know. So it has to